Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Make It Personal. And I know there has been changes, there has been delays, but we are back now, bigger and better. Make It Personal is not about the me, myself, and I narrative, but Make It Personal is an initiative or just a way of asking us to consider our deliberations, to consider our decisions, to consider our meditations and how they affect our relationship with God and how they affect our relationship with others. Because when your relationship with God is affected, then your relationship with your friends or your family and relatives is affected greatly. And today I have together with me a man of God and a husband, a family man, Pastor Kipkorir. Today we're going to handle sexual purity, or maybe let me say purity, because the reason as to why I've called him today is because I want to really know, is purity just about sexuality, and why purity is a very big matter, especially in our generation. Now, I know it has been said a lot about sexual purity, but how is purity related to sexuality? How is purity related to our relation with God? And so, Pastor Kevin,
yes,
are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right,
man, it's going to be amazing. You're trusting God that by the time we are done, something will have shifted both in our generation, and that there is a narrative that is going to change even as we have this conversation today. Yes, sir.
Tusalimia alafu ndio tueleze mambo ya purity.
Wow, so I'm Kevin Kipkorir, Pastor Kevin Kipkorir. I'm born again. I love the Lord. I am married to one wife who is a woman. It's good to specify that because today's conversation will be going around that, I know, as we continue. So I'm married to one wife who is a woman. And we thank God the Lord has been good to us. My wife is called Maggie Kipkorir. And so we thank God. Yes, that's basically about me. I am a pastor, leadership coach, and above it all, I love the Lord. Yes, sir.
I believe you're the right person to help us handle this topic.
Yes, sir.
As young people.
Yes.
And I think you're not too far from our age.
Very, very.
So you're right to talk to us or to talk to me as a representative of my generation.
As a representative of the many.
Of the many others
that
are out there. Now,
yes,
sexual purity.
Yeah. When we talk of matter sexuality, is basically us understanding that we have women and we have men. It's good to specify that because most of us they think sexuality in another way, but basically, in a nutshell, sexuality is just us understanding that there are women and men. That's a basic definition.
So sexuality is not just the act of sex?
It's not the act of sex. It's actually the part of understanding that there are actually genders. We have male and female. Because when we narrow it down to the place of just the act of having sex, then we've, you see, when we talk about purity, is actually the freedom from being contaminated. Because when God created us, when you read Genesis, we were created in his image and his likeness. Now, before man fell, there was a way God had formed man, and in which man was in the exact image. So when man fell into sin, there is a distorted image that came into perspective. And so you see, the Bible says, let us be holy as our Father is holy. So if we were created in his image and his likeness denotes character. So if he is holy, we are expected to be holy. So if you see, our God is pure. And even when we talk of matters now purity, we understand that purity is the act or it is the place of being free from being contaminated. And so, because we cannot just narrow matters of purity to just matters of having sex or the act of having sex, because we have purity of the mind.
That is what I want you to talk about especially.
Okay. You see, when you read Romans 12, it talks of us not conforming to the standards of the world, but being renewed. You see, there are people that have never had sex, but their minds are not okay. Their minds are really contaminated because what you allow to come to your mind has the ability to affect you. That's why even the Bible insists now that our mind should be transformed. Because when we don't have a transformation of our mind, then what happens, we may never transform many. So it begins with the mind. Actually, the biggest sex organ is your mind.
Okay.
The biggest sex organ is your mind.
Okay.
So before you come to the act, it comes with you first, your mind being affected. Then it comes to your heart. So we have purity of the heart. So we have people that have never done the act, but their hearts are not okay. So if your mind is not okay and your heart, then it leads you now to performing the act. Because it is out of the abundance of the heart that we speak, that we do anything. So our actions are really pegged on what happens in our mind, what happens in our heart, and now we come now to the purity of the body to now performing the act.
So wait.
Yes.
So sexual purity is not just about the act.
It's not about the act.
You can not have done the act, but your mind is really in the act.
Is already in the act.
So you're already contaminated.
You're already contaminated.
Oh Lord. Okay.
Yeah, because you see, if today you have a bottle of water, now the bottle of water, what happens is when before you do the action of pouring soil into the bottle of water, you first thought about it.
Yeah.
Kabla ujipeleke kwa nyumba huyo dem to the act, ulifikiria. Haikuanza tu wewe kuamka na kumove. Ulifikiria. You first, the idea was already conceived in the mind. So when it was conceived in the mind, then you ended up now taking what? The action. And when you took the action, now, after you took the action now, you now ended up doing what? Performing what you had thought. That's why when you read Genesis 11, it talks of these men. They thought of building a tower. So it was first in their mind. Imagine, do you know that act of just thinking made God come and see what sort of unity was this? Imagine it was a thought that they had. And that provoked God to come and see what these men were doing. Because your thoughts are able to send signals. Have you ever woken up in the morning and then you thought about something or somebody, then that person called you? Your thoughts have the ability to send signals. So before you performed the action, you first began by thinking about it. Then you took an act of moving, then you performed the act itself.
And what about wale wenye tunasemanga?
Yes.
Mimi nilikuwa nimeenda tu kutembea, kumgotea, kumsalimia, alafu nikajipata.
Sio kujipata. Because you see, Peter, what is happening in our generation is we don't want to take responsibility of our actions. And anytime we are not taking responsibility in terms of our sexuality, you see, us understanding that nambianga wase, sio anointing oil ina flow kwa mwili. Ni damu. So as much as we pray, as much as we speak in tongues, as much as we do all that, as much as we are demon chasers and all that, you cannot tell me that ulijipata because walikutumia fare, bado haujui ili happen aje. Ukatoka, ukaoga, ukapiga luku, ukatoka, and you left. And then after that, you arrived in the place, you still don't know how it happened. After arriving in the place, you were served maybe a cup of coffee or juice, imagine from their mother's fridge or their father's. Then kidogo kidogo you began watching a movie, then kidogo kidogo the movie began watching you. Like, you can't tell me you didn't know. Because we must learn to take responsibility of our actions. Now, and that is the place our generation is in. We are not taking responsibility of the actions we are doing. Because lest you take unless you take responsibility, you might never really be a man of impact and influence. When it comes to matters sexuality, they really have a big impact. Matters of purity have a big impact so much. When it comes to even our influence, and in matters of us even transforming a generation.
When you say influence, what do you mean by influence? Because if naichukulia ikiwa personal, tuseme ni personal, purity ni yangu.
Yes.
So kama niko impure, na nikose kuambia huyu mtu mwingine, how will influence be affected?
Yeah, because you know, when we talk of matters, we are now talking in the context of purity. You see, you cannot, what you serve is basically the content you carry. Today, if a vessel is defiled, in short, kama, you see, people expect to feed from something that is pure. You see, you cannot claim to feed something pure and with the same body, you are defiling it. Because remember, our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And so, inside a temple, there is, you are basically the light that people are looking upon. So anytime you enter to the place of defilement or you enter to the place of being impure, what has happened? You are dimming the light. So the light that was supposed to shine and affect many by virtue of being impure or by virtue of defiling the vessel of God, what happens is you being the light, the farthest that light should have reached to may never reach there. Why? Because already you are dimming your light. When I talk of matters of influence relating to the context of what we are talking about purity today, we must realize Matthew 5:13 says, we are the salt of the earth. But it says if salt loses its tastiness, what good will it be of? So we have so many people that have lost their tastiness by virtue of walking lives that are not pleasing to God, of defiling their mind, their hearts, and both their bodies. Because remember, today the virtue we are seated here, God needed a vessel to use for us to be here having this conversation.
Yeah.
So unless anytime we defile this body, we are defiling God's temple. And remember, people are meant to be impacted by virtue of us understanding we are the salt and also the light.
Yeah.
So anytime we are defiling ourselves, we are losing our saltiness. That's why you find people are being despised.
Yeah.
Why? Because they already lost their tastiness. And you remember, it is only in your saltiness that you are unique.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a problem of people trying to be sugar and they are salt. They are not being authentic. They are not themselves. They are not understanding the impact that they are supposed to cause. So anytime we will understand the farthest we are supposed to impact our generation, we will be careful of how we take care of ourselves, of how we watch our minds, of how we watch our hearts, and also how we take care of our bodies in terms of understanding that we are God's temple. So basically, when you defile this temple, you are dimming God's light.
Oh, yeah.
You are losing your saltiness. You are losing your uniqueness.
And losing our tastiness, we mean we are being disconnected from He who seasons us.
Yes.
As the salt and light of the world, because Jesus is the one who seasons us.
Yes, He seasons us.
And if we are not seasoned, then I don't think we have any taste.
Yes, we don't have any
And
taste.
we have no
really.
effect.
Yeah.
And because we were created to have effect on the earth,
Very
we were
true.
created in the likeness and image of God to subdue.
Very true, to subdue.
The last time I checked the meaning of the word subdue, it means take charge.
Take charge.
Or take dominion.
Yes.
And if we are to take dominion, you can't take dominion if the world around you is really bogging you down.
Very true.
It's really dimming your light.
Very true.
So, guys, I think it's high time we just make that decision to be very intentional in our interactions, in our thoughts, because the mind has really been touched on. And you've heard that the act is a manifestation of what you've been meditating upon. So ask yourself in this moment, what are you thinking about? What are you meditating upon? Who are you interacting with? What is your company right now? And there's a point I want us to stress more about.
Yes, sir.
About how serious purity is, because
Yeah.
I don't think we are really intentional about purity. Talk to us about, yani hii purity inakuanga serious aje? Iko serious sana ama ni kitu tu ya kupitia juu ili tuweze kuongelesha watu? And then what does the Bible talk about purity really?
Yes.
And especially sexual purity.
Now, maybe if we can define sexual purity, then what it is.
It will be easier.
So, sexual purity is basically abstaining from any sexual activity until you're married.
All right.
Until you're married.
All right.
Because what happens is this, when God, by their sex is good, but there is a context, there is a container in which God created sex for, and that is marriage. So anytime we go out of the context of the container that sex was created for, we are against the intention of our creator or of the one. You see, God created sex in the institution of marriage. That's why he says, a man shall leave his father's home. And a woman from their side. And what they will do, they will cleave together. So there must be a living to a cleaving.
Yeah.
So sex is basically not for boys and girls in pampers, but for men and women in purpose. It's good I insist that.
All right.
Because what is happening is this, Peter, many people have really gone against the original intention of the creator, because God created sex, and sex is good. You know, people may say, yes, I'm married, that's why I'm speaking like that. But you see, the fact is this. If we don't understand the original intention of God, who is our creator, or when you don't know the importance of something, it will end up being misused.
Yeah.
And you see, that is where we are as a generation. We have really misused because we didn't know, or maybe we acted out of ignorance. You see, the Bible talks of knowing the truth, and this truth will do what? Will set us free.
Yeah.
So any sex outside the context of marriage, it's not making love.
Oh.
It is fornication.
And that's against God.
It is against God, and God hates.
Wow.
He hates that so much, because most of us, you see, we find good words to kupamba sin in a way. We say, you know, we were just making out, we were just making love. You are fornicating, not making love. Because we must understand the context of sex or matters of sexual purity. Sex is meant only in the context of marriage. If you are not married, sex is a no-go zone for you. Because let's talk of the weight of this matter. You see, there are some gates that we open and they harm us in marriage. Do you know, by the way, when right now you engage yourself in sexual activities, what you are doing is you are opening a gate for unfaithfulness in marriage.
Wow. That is serious.
You are opening a gate basically for unfaithfulness in marriage. Because right now, if you are unfaithful when you're not married right now, it means even when you get into marriage, you'll be unfaithful.
Oh yeah. Nasikianga tukiambiwa kenye unafanya ukiwa single ukiingia kwa marriage itakuwa,
it will be very much amplified.
Okay.
And so there are gates we have opened because we were not careful. And they ended up harming many people. By the way, many of the divorces you see today, many of the broken marriages you see today, if you really trace the root, it was either these people were unfaithful, they engaged in sexual activity, they were doing things that were really not in matters of them maintaining their purity. They were sleeping around. So when you get into marriage, that spirit again begins to affect you, because any gate you opened, if you're not careful, it will affect you big time in marriage. Because imagine right now, you engage in sexual activity, you get somebody pregnant, or you contact an STI. You see the way it is that you will have, there is a consequence for what you have done. I think my generation should understand that for any actions we are doing today, they have a consequence to our future.
Wow.
One, we waste our energy.
Yeah.
Because you need energy for that activity when you're married.
But let me ask you,
Yes, sir.
before you even continue, mi nasikianga watu wengine wakisema acha ni enjoy kukua kijana sahi. Nikifika age naona nafaa kukua serious,
Yes.
nitajiredeem juu grace ya God iko. See, the grace of God is available. So why not take advantage of the grace?
You've touched on matters grace. This word says something powerful. The grace of God has appeared to all men. And what is the importance of this grace that has appeared to all men? It is teaching them to say no to ungodliness. So grace does not permit sin.
Oh, okay.
Grace empowers you not to sin.
Say that again, please.
Grace is not a permission, is not a legalization for you to sin. It is actually what grace does. Grace does not permit you to, it empowers you to live a life that is pure.
Wow. So in other words, you're trying to tell us,
Yes.
those of us that really engage in sin, we have moved away from grace.
Very.
Because if the grace is what helps us to evade sin,
Yes.
then if you have the grace, you should not be sinning. And there's another thing you've touched, that sex is not for men in pampas.
Yes.
It is for men with purpose.
With purpose.
That means then, if sex is the only thing you're doing, you have no purpose.
Wow. Okay.
The other day I was just researching about purpose, because purpose is another thing that has really been stressed about by motivational speakers.
Yes.
Or even in church you hear, find purpose. And I've really struggled to understand what purpose is.
Yes.
And I was reading Ecclesiastes, and it says, God has made everything beautiful at its own time. He installed eternity in men. And then the Amplified Bible says eternity of purpose. And when I was meditating upon it, a revelation just came in mind. And we are not moving out of our topic, sexual purity, because purpose will take us back to sexual purity.
Sexual purity.
And purpose just dawned on me that purpose is that inner desire, or that eternity that is really in you. A desire to do a podcast.
True.
To minister. A desire to evangelize.
Yes.
A desire to be an engineer.
Yes.
A desire to help the poor. A desire to have a children's home.
Yes.
That inner desire that really you feel it pushes you to, yani kuna kale ka desire una feelingi manze, mimi siku yenye nitashika kamera, siku yenye nitashika mic niimbe, siku yenye nitaweza kumenta watu, siku yenye nitasimama place kufanya public speaking. That is what purpose is.
Purpose is.
Because if you have that purpose, it will occupy your mind.
Yes.
And before I knew that, let me tell you, by the way, let me confess before the camera and before you, that I have been, is it a captive? I have been a victim of sexual impurity.
Yeah.
Wow. I really struggled with masturbation. And I think this is why this burden was deposited in my mind, because no one ever told me about sexual purity. No one ever told me that pornography, the effects of pornography. No one ever told me about maintaining a pure life. The only thing I was told about is, don't impregnate ladies.
Wow. The do's and don'ts.
It's the do's and don'ts.
Okay.
But not, you don't have the background information. You only
You
have what we learned in school, basically.
Yes.
And that is not really in depth to help you understand what you should do. So I think, in short, purpose is really powerful.
Very.
And purpose is of God, because God is the one that installed purpose in us. The
True.
eternity of purpose. That inner desire that never ends in you.
Wow.
a public speaker never feels that I will not do public speaking anymore, because it is an eternity.
It's an eternity.
A desire that never ends.
Wow.
You feel like doing it forevermore, and you really enjoy it.
Yes.
And in the same book of Ecclesiastes, there's a place that it says that our that God intends for us to enjoy the works of our labor, the labor, our labor.
Our labor.
And our labor is not really looking for money.
Yes.
Our joy is to when you preach, you really feel fulfilled.
Fulfilled.
No one has paid you, really.
True.
But you enjoy seeing souls being saved.
Yes.
You enjoy seeing people being empowered and going to the next level. That is the joy that the Lord talks about.
Yes.
And if that purpose never occupies your mind, then
true.
you get yourself going into ungodly things.
Ungodly things.
Because you see, God's plan is for us to prosper and not to harm us.
Yes.
Ungodly things will harm you.
Yes.
Sexual impurity or engaging in sexual activities will harm you. And they will cause you to perish.
Yes.
That is not God's plan.
It's not God's
plan.
plan.
I see how now it connects that sexual purity is really serious.
Very.
And what you do now, you will harvest in the future.
You'll harvest.
And I don't know what you really want to harvest in the future. I know we all want to harvest prosperity. Najua sisi wote tunataka kuharvest mado, kuishi life fiti. Lakini how are you living right now? What are you doing right now to build a good future? And I think this conversation is really key.
Yeah, you see, you've touched on something, and you've touched on porn, issues of pornography. Actually, one of the major causes of people engaging into sexual impurity, one of them is issues of pornography. Because porn is actually, it's a gate you've opened.
Yeah.
And you see, some of these people worked these issues of porn. What happens? Some of them are demonically empowered.
Yeah. They have an intention.
Yeah. Because actually, everything, even the purpose, the fact that we are here, there is an intention as to why we are doing what we are doing. To see a generation transform.
Yeah.
So anyone doing anything is not just for the sake, but it is, they have an agenda they are pushing. So when all this content is coming, you see, when you talked of Misijui, you see, some of the gates we opened, we are the ones that took ourselves.
Yeah.
In fact, we are the ones that invited those spirits to harm us. Why? Because you are the one who typed www.porn. So nobody really forced you to do that. But at times there are things we attract. We take ourselves to those things. And one of the things is that we ought to understand that our eyes are a gate.
Yeah.
I think it's good we insist on that, because what you see has the ability to affect you.
Oh, yeah.
What you hear has also the ability to affect you. If all you listen is to secular music and all that, you see the nudes and all that they are doing. Actually, these issues of secular music, the kinds of dirty videos you see.
Oh, yeah. And words.
And the words that they speak. They really, it's a gate. So anytime you begin listening to this secular music, what happens is the spirit that these people are empowered with enters you.
Oh, wow.
So you find you are not struggling with the spirit of lust. All of a sudden, the spirit of lust comes upon you. What you saw with your eyes affected you.
And what you heard.
What you heard. Your ears are a gate. Your private parts are a gate also.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is only meant for one priest at the right time. And that is in the context of marriage. Because sex in marriage honors God.
Oh, yeah.
That is something so powerful. In marriage, it honors God. Like God is proud and saying, wow. This is the reason as to why I created. And allow me to say this. People have the mindset that by the marriage does not cure lust. It doesn't.
Really? Talk about that.
Because some of us, due to lust, lust is basically the act of doing something to gratify your flesh. That is lust in matters of the context of sex, of sexuality or sexual purity. So many of us think that by entering into marriage, you've cured lust. That is where we miss it.
I thought I would be faithful to this one partner, so
Audio Jungle.